Hello and welcome to the Jazz TV. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. I'm joined today by Gordy. How are you doing, mate?
Okay, self.
Welcome to the Jazz
Yeah,
TV.
all good, mate. All good, all good. So today we're just going to be talking about the interview that happened yesterday with Danny Röhl. That was on RTV, and also the press conference that happened today, where he was sat next to Patrick Stewart, Kevin Thelwell, and Andrew Kavanagh. So, did you watch the interview yesterday, Daniel? What did you make of it?
I mean, it comes across quite well.
Yeah.
If I'm being fair. Obviously, it's a lot bit of a language gap because of the German, but I mean, can't really judge. Can't really judge on that interview alone, obviously. But I thought he sounded good. He sounded confident, and he seemed to understand where we were at and what the expectations are. How much of that is sound bites and how much of that is his actual personal belief, we'll find out very shortly. But I was certainly more impressed by Danny Röhl yesterday than Russell Martin back in June.
Yeah. I was quite impressed as well, to be fair. But I'm always a bit sort of skeptical, with these interviews and stuff, because they say the right things and they always sound good, but then it's actually delivering on the pitch, and we've heard it time and time and time again. With these managers coming and going and saying the right things and saying that we need to win and we need to win now, but it's actually doing that. It's actually not just all talk, but doing it. So I'll look at the interview and some of the we'll go through some of the questions from that interview. His first question was about him as a coach and sort of what he has learned as a coach so far on his journey. And he started really young though in football. I think he started at 21 years old as an analyst at RB Leipzig. Now RB Leipzig were first formed in 2009, but he's basically been with them since like the birth of the club. Pretty much, he joined in 2010, so they were about a year old when he started. Yeah. And he was like the video analyst for the youth team before moving on to become the assistant manager for the under-17s. Then he went to become the video analyst for the senior team and was in that role as they got promoted to the Bundesliga. And then their first season in the Bundesliga, Ralf Hasenhüttl made him the assistant manager. So he's been the assistant manager and been in the coaching role since 2016. But then Ralf Hasenhüttl took him to Southampton in 2018. And then he was there until the end of that season. And then he went on to become the Bayern Munich assistant manager under Nico Kovac and then Hansi Flick. And then Hansi Flick ended up taking him to Germany with him when he left there. So I mean, he's been in football a while, but every time he's gone up a level, the manager that he's been working under has took him to sort of their next role with him. So clearly he's been making an impact everywhere he goes.
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing some shares and some copying there. So yeah, I mean, he seems to. I mean, his career's been on the rise. I mean, he's not, for as far as I can tell, looking at his history and his career, his only trajectory so far is up, and that includes the kind of managerial stuff as well. Sheffield Wednesday, then to Rangers, of course. So that's the kind of guy I like, a guy that's on the up, rather than a guy that's been sacked or had a bad one, been on the managerial merry-go-round. Because some of these managers are kind of journeyman managers, where look at Sean Dyche. He's waiting on his Forest today. He'll probably be there for a year or two, then go to another mid-level Premiership club. Russell Martin will probably bounce about the Championship for a few years. So he's on the up, and he's a young guy as well. So he'll have lots of energy, have lots of passion, and I'm not against his appointment by any stretch of the imagination. I'd rather it was Danny Röhl than Russell Martin. But yeah, he's certainly. I mean, he'll learn a lot. I mean, his German national team. He's learned off Fricky, the Barcelona manager as well. As you say, he's cut his teeth in Germany and Leipzig. He's been down south, and he was really up against it. The more I look into the days at Sheffield Wednesday, I mean, there was been boycotts, protests. transfer embargoes, points deductions, everything you could throw at him. And he's kept a club. He's kept that club together last season and was on a promotion push for most of the season.
Yeah, I know. I'll just read through one of the questions on RTV. So he was asked what he has learned from his coaching experience so far, and he said, "I learned a lot. I think after 16 years in this job with a lot of different stations in Leipzig, I learned a lot about how you build up a club, how you can be successful in one direction. I had some relegation fights. We always won this fight, but then I think this is very important for us here. My experience in Munich, we won all in all 7 titles in 18 months. We won the Champions League." We were the champions, and I know what it means to lead such a club in front of all the demands. And I think this is very important to understand when you arrive here that you have to win, and I want to win with my group. So there, it's he's gone through his managerial journey and also the different clubs that he's been at. So he's been at a club like Leipzig, like I said before, where he was pretty much there from when they first became a football club, an independent football club, and so he's seen what it takes to actually grow a club from the lower leagues all the way up to the top. He's been at a club like Bayern Munich, where the demands are just like they are with our club. We have to win every game. If you don't win, it's a crisis. And not only has he been at that club, he has been at that club in a very successful period. You know, he won seven trophies, including the Champions League, the biggest one of all. So he's got that experience and he knows what that looks like. But he's also been at the other end of it, where he's been in a relegation fight, where where you need to dig deep and you need to fight for every point, and he's been there and not just survived, but people are talking about his relegation fight with Sheffield Wednesday as the greatest escape there's ever been. So that sort of excites me that he's got this like varied experience within the football world already, and he's only 36 years old. But and if you look at managers like Sean Dyche, for example, going to Nottingham Forest today, I feel like managers, they have like a specific role within the footballing world, like Sam Allardyce, for example. If you want to fight relegation, you'll be looking at a manager like Sam Allardyce, but you wouldn't put him in charge of Man City to go and win the title. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we sort of had that with Gerrard, and that's what he loved about the club, and that's what when he did the interview with Rio, what he's actually looking for moving forward as well. He knows himself that he needs to be at a club where the demands are to win things, because he's a winner. He was the same as a player. He wanted to win every game. If the demands are just to win some games or win enough to stay up, you need a specific manager for that. So I'm hoping with his experience at the likes of Bayern Munich, where the demands are to win every game, he can take that into the challenge with Rangers.
Yeah, good points there. I mean, the only caution I've got with this is that obviously being an assistant most of his career or a coach, so it's not that, although he's been part of that setup that's had the pressure, it's not fallen all on his shoulders. However, you pick up a lot working with the guys that whose shoulders it is, and he'll have learned how to he would have learned coping mechanisms. He would have learned how to talk to players, how to get message across to players. And at these big clubs where you've got managers responsible for a hell of a lot of duties, he would have probably spent a lot of time with the players at these clubs. So only concern, as I say, is it's not on the expectations. It's all very well talking about the expectations from his time in Germany, etc. But a couple of years ago, the expectations at Sheffield Wednesday more recently was just about survival. But that was it. That was the only objective. So it'll be very, very interesting. But I think he carries himself well, looks the part. I don't really care if win the champion. If somebody were trainers to a press conference, but we end up winning the Champions League, that's not really top of my priorities. I do understand why people do have a big thing about that. But listen, he can do whatever he wants if he wins the Champions League. When he's birthday suit on for all I care.
Yeah.
But I'll just say some comments. Just from Karen, her cousin is a season ticket holder. I was actually trying to work out what STH stood for. That's why I was talking so long, because I couldn't work out what STH stood for. But I was a season ticket holder at Hillsborough, and we had a Sheffield Wednesday fan on last night, Karen, and he was very positive about Danny Röhl and the people that we've spoken to have certainly been positive about him. And although on the surface of it, 12th place isn't nothing to cut, it isn't anything major to write home about. Given the context and the circumstances he found himself in, so that's a very good achievement. So Andrew McInnes is asking who his backroom team is. We don't know. That's there's no actual announcements yet. So there must be some stuff going on behind the scenes there. One of the concerns I raised last night, didn't actually raise it on the show, I don't think, but one concern I've got, Jay, is that if he's appointed to be a head coach, does he have any say in who? Because he won't, who joins his backroom team, because he won't know any Scottish coaches. He won't know how Lee Wallace operates. He won't know how Stephen Davis operates. He won't know how Neil McCann, Jermaine Defoe. I mean, he can guess, but will he have a backroom team imposed upon him by Kevin Thirlwell and Patrick Stewart, or will he be given maybe not carte blanche to choose his own team, but will he have some say in that? Because it's critical. He'll know from his experience how important it is to have that backroom team in place. That's the one bit of experience he's got, given his background. So, what do you make of that, and what do you think of the fact we don't have any official announcements yet?
Well, it's an interesting point because I doubt he has these relationships already with ex-Rangers players, So like you can't just call up Lee Wallace or Jermaine Defoe or whoever it may be, Steve Davis. I don't think he's got their number to just call up and be like, "Do you fancy coming and being a coach for us?" I guess he needs to put out some feelers with some of the coaches. I mean, maybe Kevin Thirlwell will give him some suggestions, and then they organise interviews with a number of them, because I feel like, in listening to some of the Sheffield Wednesday supporters, that is something that he likes to do. He wants to have someone in there to be that bridge between himself and the players. So if the messages aren't coming across from him as well as he would like, because obviously he is German, English isn't his mother tongue. He will have someone there to be able to speak to them in their language as such. So perhaps I think he definitely will bring someone in, but I just don't know who. We said you said Lee Wallace there, and there'll be some other names mentioned. But I feel like it is important that we get this sorted as soon as possible, and I feel like they will as well. I hope they get it sorted in time for Thursday, if not definitely for Sunday. But I'm quite excited to see who is going to join, and I really do hope that he does go down the route of bringing in someone who knows the club and knows the league, because he's going to need that. He's going to need all the support that he can get. At the end of the day, he is still only 36, and this is his first time in this sort of environment in Scotland, and being the number one in charge of a club the size of Rangers. So I think he's definitely going to need all the support he can get. I'll just quickly move on to the second question then, because it's sort of in line with what Karen said before about Sheffield Wednesday fans loving him. And, from comments and from interviews that I've seen from Sheffield Wednesday supporters, they've been saying the same. So the question on RTV yesterday: what can Rangers supporters expect from Röhl as a coach and the identity of the team? And so he mentions that he likes to feel the synergy between the fans and the players, which I think is going to be really important, because that is just non-existent at the minute. I mean, I can't count how many times the players have been booed off this year, already. I mean, it happened in the first preseason game of the season. There wasn't that relationship there with the fans and the players, especially after last season. And the only way that's going to be able to be fixed is by winning games of football. And he goes on to say that he wants to play a high pressing, attacking football with energy, speed, and style. But I feel like Russell Martin said the same sort of thing. So I'm a bit wary, when managers come out and say how they want to play games of football, how they want to win games of football, because we've heard it all before. So what are your thoughts on his comments about the synergy between the fans and players? How important is that to his time at the club?
It's very important, and I do think the fans were given some time. Ultimately, we don't have a choice at the moment. I hate to say it in such kind of frank language, but we don't have a choice. We're not going to replace somebody else before the end of the season. irrespective of what, unless it's a complete disaster, which I don't believe it will be. The proof in the pudding. Bill said a lot of good things. Clement said a lot of good things, especially at the start. As Russell Martin said, whatever came to his mind, to be perfectly honest. He was watching different games from me, especially when it came to guys like Danilo.
Yeah.
So and now we've got Danny Röhl in place, it's one thing saying the right thing, and yeah, he said the right things. No mistake about that. But once bitten, twice shy. Well, I think Rangers fans are just a little bit skeptical when it comes to words at the moment.
Yeah.
What we learn is actions, and it won't happen straight away. Don't expect to see this high dynamic, high pressing, high energy game on Thursday by any stretch of the imagination. We might see it in bits and bobs like we have all season and the season before, but it will take a few weeks, weeks and weeks for his style to come across. And I'm looking forward to it. As I say, it all comes down to get behind him and give him an opportunity. He's a youngish guy with energy, enthusiasm, and passion. He's on the way up. Doesn't have much of a track record, but what he has done has been good. So fair to take him at his word. That's the bottom line.
He was also asked on RTV what can we expect from his team, and he said at first wins, because this is the most important key. We don't have much time, but he will not make any excuses. And I feel like having listened to his interview, he is very much sort of along the lines of we need to win now and just win, and then we will win with better performances in the future. But the most important thing is to win. And I feel like that was different to Russell Martin. It almost felt like, well, we need to learn how to perform this style of play, and then the wins will naturally follow. Whereas that's not how things work in Scotland and at Rangers. You need to win, and then you can make winning look more attractive in the future. But the bottom line is you have got to win games of football. And I hope we can start that on Thursday.
No, that's a very good point, and it's absolutely true. Quite frankly, don't care if we were up against Celtic in the semi-final League Cup in a couple of weeks' time and we straight through 1-0, win the League Cup. But we don't care how we played in the semi-final. We don't. And for Russell Martin, it seemed Russell Martin. It's funny because in his press conferences, you think that Russell Martin was all about style first, result second, but then come the last 5 minutes of each game, style out the window.
Yeah.
And it was like back to the old next goal's winner, schooly kind of stuff. So that was a strange paradox. Just very briefly, funnily enough, the goalkeeping coach, Salvatore Bibo, he was actually at Sheffield Wednesday. So he'll have that connection with Danny Röhl already. So
you'd expect him to stay on then, and be part of that. Yeah.
I'd expect guys like Brian Gilmore and Stevie Smith to stay on in the development areas. But I'm just wary that, that the first potential clash already between the new man, and you would like to think that when they were discussing the backroom team, he would have his own in mind. I can't help but feel that was one of the sticking points with Muscat and Gerrard, actually, on reflection, the backroom team, because, again, Thirlwell we'll probably want to talk about that in a couple of minutes, but I just think that Thirlwell is going to be appointed to the backroom team. And
well, it's interesting that, and we'll probably move on to the press conference today. Then, did you watch the press conference?
Most of it, yeah. I'll be honest, but I had to switch it off towards the end because I couldn't listen to any more of what Thirlwell was saying, to be perfectly honest.
I know.
I don't have any confidence in him whatsoever now. Like, my confidence is gone, and he'll be calling the shots. And to be fair, the people at the press conferences from fan media and the papers, etc., and Sky, they were asking certain questions. Like, I did actually want to take my hat off to the questions. Some of the questions were getting asked because they were uncomfortable questions, but they had to be asked. But I just got the opinion that, Thirlwell's making most of the shots. Patrick Stewart's got this confidence in Thirlwell, and it said that one of the things was there has to be a collaboration between the head coach and the sporting director. But what credentials does the sporting director have? That's the point. That's the more serious point. He wasn't a roaring success at Everton, from what I gather. He's not. He's far from being a success up here. But again, he will be calling the shots for the most part, with the sounds of things. And his son's in the recruitment department. His pals are in other departments as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know what credentials he's got as a footballing guy.
I know. And we'll come on to a bit more of that in a minute. But yeah, so Andrew Kavanagh admitted to, obviously, that Russell Martin was a failure and it just did not work, right? Which was good, because they need to own up to their mistakes. We can all see that it didn't work; it was a failure. But it's all about what happens next. My worry is that it looks to me as if these two idiots in Kevin Thirlwell and Patrick Stewart are in it for the long haul. And listening to Andrew Kavanagh did a sit down with RTV as well afterwards, basically saying that over the last 2 weeks they've been working so close together, the four of them, Parag, Kavanagh, Thirlwell, and Stewart, and they were texting non-stop every day and stuff. And it feels like they're all sort of best buds and they're in this together, sort of thing. And I'm like, those two idiots are gonna turn the fans' attention onto the owners if they're not careful, because they're giving too much trust into them. And when I was listening to Kevin Thirlwell, so Kevin Thirlwell was doubling down on his son's recruitment. He was doubling down on Chimiti. He was saying that it wasn't me that hired my son. It was Dan Purdy, the technical director. He wanted to hire him at Everton. But I stepped in. I said it was too early for him, and then I said, yeah, you can come to Rangers. But then at the same time, he was like, the pressure is like nowhere near, and I'm paraphrasing, nowhere near as big at Everton as it is under the lights at Rangers. So it's like, well, if he wasn't ready a couple of seasons ago, whatever, to go into Everton, and the pressure's bigger at Rangers, how is he now all of a sudden at 26 years old ready for this sort of step up? And again, it's Dan Purdy who wanted him at Everton, and Dan Purdy who's now hired him at Rangers. So was there a thorough recruitment process in order to recruit ahead of recruitment? Or was it just Dan Purdy wanted him at Everton, now he can have him at Rangers? Was there anyone else interviewed for the role? It doesn't seem like it. It just seems jobs for the boys and all of that rubbish. So that's a big worry for me. And the fact that Kevin Thirlwell was, again, doubling down on the whole, my son, he's making a career of his own, and he's going to work 25/8, which doesn't exist, by the way. The whole 25/8 nonsense. I understand what he means, but it's just nonsense, and it's like he's going to work so hard. It's like, I don't care like how hard he's going to work. If he's not good enough, the more he works, the more damage he's going to do. I want someone in that role who's actually going to be good enough, So those are still serious concerns for me. What do you make of it all?
Well, it's interesting because Thirlwell's had an interesting career. He's had good jobs. He was head of sport at New York Red Bulls. Then he became sporting director. Then he became director of football at Everton, and now he's title sporting director at Rangers. So, he's got experience. New York Red Bulls are a big establishment, maybe not known, obviously American, and maybe not a lot of people know about them, but they're a big organisation, that's a franchise as well. So he'll feel that's interesting. He'll know all about the American way of working, especially with guys like Andrew Kavanagh. And he was director of football at Everton, now sport director. So, I don't know how, maybe he's blagged his way through these jobs. I don't know, but
I also feel like it can be a bit different at times, though. So, like, going into a job at Wolves or a job at Everton, the mindset is different. I feel like it's very hard to switch your mindset and all of a sudden become someone that that needs to be able to cope with the demands of winning every week. You know, at Everton, his goal and the things that the Everton fans applaud him for, if I remember rightly, it's not necessarily the signings that he made, because I think there were some shockers in there, but it was the money that he was able to get from player sales, etc., which was what they needed at the time because they were in some financial difficulties, right? But we do need that. We need the player trading model, but we also need players to come in and do the business now. And it looks like he's spent so much money on potential, trying to, you know, get them in and then you know, make a profit on them in the future without actually thinking of what we need here and now. It's like the Shamiti deal. The fact that he was doubling down on him, saying that he's a fantastic footballer and he's got a lot of potential and promise, etc., etc., etc. I mean, that's all well and good, but if he's not going to do the business for us now, what good is he? You know, because we need to win now. We're not a project. We need to win in 2 or 3 years' time, and this player's going to help us with that. This wasn't the season for potential. This was the season for here and now. And you can have one or two in there, but not an £8 million striker. You do not sign an £8 million player and call him potential in the Scottish game. You know,
I mean, understand that if we were top of the league and we were flying, and then, you know, we brought in a project player because at least in a kind of winning team, you know, you bring him into a winning team. But back when backs are against the wall, you know, back at the end of August, in the transfer window, that's when it started. You know, Martin's job. We should have spent £8 million on a couple of defenders and maybe one striker. You could have got, you know, 2 or 3 players for that, and you know, 2 or 3 decent players. It's just decision making, and you know, Shamiti might well be a good player for us in the future, but as we've talked about in this show several times, it's the £8 million always going to hang over his head, and he's never going to be I mean, that's £24 million teams have spent on him in the last 3 years, and he's not scored a goal.
I know.
And you know, and the longer it goes, the longer it goes, the harder it's going to be for him as well. I don't think Majowski's hit the ground particularly great either. He's only got a couple of goals himself, but the pressure's off him. He wasn't £8 million.
I know, but
that's what's going to be it.
And the pressure is on the manager to get £8 million worth of player out of him, because, you know, do you start him and keep Majowski on the bench, but he's just not good enough right now to be starting games. But then it's like, well, you know, can you keep an £8 million player on the bench every week? You know, it's trying to find that balance. But at the end of the day, if he's not good enough, doesn't matter what his price tag is, he does not deserve to start games. You know, and
so that's when there's a potential for a clash, because if Thelwell's got the influence and he says, no, this is an £8 million player, you need to play him, you need to get the best out of him, and at what point does Danny Röhl have the experience or the, let's just call it a spade, the balls to actually say, no, he's crap, or no, doesn't fit in my system? Because there's no way that the powers that be at Rangers are going to let an £8 million guy waste, well, actually, I wouldn't surprise me if they did, but I would like to think that they won't have it. They won't want an £8 million player on the bench week in, week out, because there's no sell-on value for that. So his value is going to just decline, and we might, you know, end up. But even if he does score a lot of goals, he's not. I don't think it's going, unless he bags 30, 40 goals a season for the next 2 years. Then his value's not going to go up, and I don't see him do it right now. He might by the luck of the draw, he's going to get a couple of goals, but I just don't think he's a 25 goal a season player right now. And
I also dread to think what his wages are going to be. You know, like an £8 million player who was signed by Everton. I mean, they would have been paying him decent wages, you know. So did he take a massive wage cut to come to us, or are we just paying him over the top wages for sitting on the bench? I mean, it's scary. You know,
I mean, he's scored 3 goals in his professional career.
I know.
I mean,
people are talking about him breaking his goal drought in the international break, but he was playing for the Portuguese under-21s. I mean, I don't count youth goals as any serious goal. It doesn't matter if it's for his country. If it's at under-21 level, then for me, the lad's got a senior goal since sporting days.
I mean, I think he's played more than up 3 than us, but in his professional career, because I'm not even counting the Sporting B team either. So for Sporting, he played 16 games and scored 3 goals. That convinced Thelwell and Everton to pay £16 million for him. He made 22 appearances for Everton over the course of two seasons, scored no goals, and we then decided to pay £8 million based on that.
It's so I would love to know what the discussions were in that room at that time when they made that decision, because the way Kevin Thurwell was speaking in that press conference today, it's very much a combined decision between the sporting director himself and the manager at the time, Austin Martin. But it's like, how did they come to the conclusion that this was the guy out of every single striker they could possibly get? This was the guy, and we're going to spend $8 million on this guy as well. I mean, I would love to know how they came to that decision, but the fact that he's doubling down on it, I mean, the pressure is all on, for me, the pressure is all on Kevin Thirlwell, because if this team now doesn't perform under Danny Röhl, no one's going to be booing Danny Röhl and saying, Danny, get the fuck. It'll be Martin, it'll be Thirlwell.
Yeah,
he'll be the one, Kevin Thirlwell. He'll be the one that gets it. So,
and if I
do hide now, he signed these players. Are we going to give them more money in January to spend? Do you trust them with more money in January? I mean, I don't.
And it's an interesting point, because Thirlwell said, well, the recruitment people get together and the manager gets together, I get together, and they decide on what list of targets, and then so did Russell Martin say to Thirlwell, "Or get me a guy that costs a fortune that doesn't score"?
Yeah,
because that's what it looks like. Because if that is the case, then why not get him on loan with an option to buy? Why not say, right, we'll pay his wages for a year, and then because we got Magoma and Aiden's on loan and Mikey Moore on loan, so. And I can't imagine Everton. I can't imagine there's a lot of clubs sniffing around him.
No.
So,
So it makes you wonder why we paid that much for him. Like, it's not like there was a bidding war for him or something. So it's why did you pay that?
I mean, there's a small part of me that says, what, a guy that that was at Sporting Lisbon, he had by all means, I have to look back at some of the press clippings and interviews from a few years ago, and he was reasonably well regarded. He was never cited as a new Cristiano Ronaldo, but he had a breakthrough with Sporting Lisbon and he played okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then Everton joined him, and then I think he might have had a couple of injuries when he first joined Everton, never really got into it. And so there's a small part of me that still says it could be a good deal, but there's no evidence of that at all. And I think he's come on. He's played. I think he's played 4 or 5 games for us now, and he's had a few shots in that. But I mean, I think he came on his first game and he missed. He was clean through a goal and missed. So that wasn't a great start as well. So yeah, he's got a lot to prove, and it's a shame because no matter how hard he works and whatever, he's always going to. It's always going to have that. He's going to have that price tag over his head, and. It's the same to a lesser, it's to not quite the same extent as Torre Flo, but it didn't matter how many goals or how well Torre Flo played. He was always compared against, is that value for money for 12 million? But, I can see us losing a thought. I can see us, we'd be like, right now, I mean, if we were to sell Shermatty, the way he's playing right now, we'd be lucky to get a couple of million for him.
Oh, yeah. Like his price plummeted, no way anyone's paying 8 million for him. I'd be shocked, But then it's like, well, he can't score goals. He can't hold the ball up. He just looks awkward every time he gets it. And it's like, well, what value are we getting from him? I don't feel like we're getting anything, But hopefully, you never know. With this new manager, he might completely turn his fortunes around. He's hoping, but that's all it is. It's just hope, because I don't really feel like it's going to happen at all. Comment there from Stephen Armstrong saying, I don't think there was enough asked about backroom staff that may be coming in with him. I do wonder about this backroom staff because it's extremely important that he gets the right people around him. He gets the right coaches. I feel like Steven Gerrard, that's what he did really well. He had a great team around him, like Gary McAllister, Michael Beale, etc. Really good coaches. Coaches that knew the league as well, and Gary McAllister. So, yeah, hopefully he does get what he wants and not coaches that forced upon him by Kevin Thelwell.
Yeah.
And again, Stephen Armstrong agrees with us. I don't understand why they would pay that much for a kid who hasn't scored in nearly 3 years. I know it's a depressing thought, that we've managed to do this, and it doesn't bode well for the future and future transfer windows, because clearly this squad isn't up to speed, isn't up to scratch, and we're going to need reinforcements in January and in December.
But if you listen to the press conference, the people in charge of Rangers think it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, they think the squad is a lot better than what it's currently showing.
They think bringing a new manager in is going to make a magic wand, and they're all going to be, they're all going to shake their legs and become, great players. And it's interesting that Thelwell singled out Asgard in the press conference today as well.
I thought that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was strange. I wasn't expecting him to. Normally, people like that don't single out players, so they must. I mean, there must be a gem of talent in there, given his exploits for Norway, and you see the glimpses of it on Saturday there against Dundee United. But he needs to play for 90 minutes. That's the problem with Rangers right now. We play for 30 minutes at a time or 45 minutes at a time, and that's it. That second half to play against Dundee United was an absolute disgrace, as far as I'm concerned. And we've not even spoken about the game yet on the channel, but I watched the game back, and if you paused the telly when that ball breaks to, I think Skipples his name, there's 5 Rangers players within 10-15 metres of that ball, and none of them are facing the ball.
But for me, it's all down to sort of character. The character of the players doesn't seem to be, and the mentality isn't right. And I know Russell Martin mentioned it time and time again. But can a new manager make that much of a difference to someone's character and to someone's sort of mentality? Because if they've got the ability, like we've seen Thelo Asgard do, obviously on Saturday with that great run and strike into the top corner. But if he's not doing that consistently enough, or the league might be too physical for him, and he might struggle to show what he can do more consistently, how is another manager really going to make that much difference to that player? If he does, then hats off to him, and we can really see how bad Russell Martin was as a head coach for us. But I just feel like that's too much to ask, for someone to change so many of our players' mentality and their character, and just putting your body in the line, blocking a shot, some basic things like that didn't happen at the weekend, and we allowed them to get the shot off and score 2 goals from it. Like how can we get that instilled into the team? How do you instill this winning mentality when the club and the players at this moment in time look so fragile and they can't buy a win? So I mean, the job that he's got on his hands is huge. It is absolutely enormous. But at the same time, do you think it's a good time for him to come in? Because the pressure isn't on him. The players have performed really, really badly. And our questions are all at Kevin Thelwell and recruitment. So if it fails, no one's going to be pointing fingers at him and saying he didn't get the best out of this team, because Russell Martin couldn't do it. If he can't do it, who can?
I agree and disagree with what you just said. Yeah, I think there is pressure on him to get results, and he accepts that. I mean, if you take him at his word and what he said over the last 24 hours, he knows there is. If we lose to Brann and then Kilmarnock and then lose to Celtic in the semi-final, then it's going to be back to square one. Like, yes, he will be given time, but the atmosphere is just not going to change at all. And maybe we need to be more patient with the team at Ibrox, especially. maybe there's an element of that to it. That's not for me to say. It's not my place to say that. But the pressure is going to be on him. At Rangers, the pressure's on him. The pressure's on you 24/7. The scrutiny's on you 24/7. There's me. I've looked up Kevin Thedwell's history. I can tell you where to buy his 352 European coaching book that he's probably forgot he's written. It's not sold a lot on Amazon, never mind. So, the scrutiny on Thirlwell and Stewart is unreal. Yes, he'll be protected slightly from that, but ultimately he's still the man. Whatever title he's the hierarchy call him, we still know him as the Rangers manager, and the pressure will be on him for day one. And I just hope and pray he gets off to a good start, because if he doesn't, then the player's mentality, as you said, I agree with that, isn't there. So we'll just continue to struggle. And then Thirlwell, come January, they'll say, no, you've got the team there to get results. And then we're going to be back to square one. And all the goodwill from the 49ers taking over will be gone by that point. And I was Kavanagh's face and body language was terrible today. Like, it was at the whole interview, the body language and the demeanour of the people there, including to some extent Danny Röhl, by the way, as well, was just awful. It was so strange. And if Andrew Kavanagh wasn't aware of the scrutiny that Thirlwell and Stewart were under, he certainly is now.
But he mentions a comment about not really understanding the size of the club until he actually started, until he actually took over and was a part of it. Just the pressure is enormous. And you can tell on their faces, when they're giving these interviews now, you can see that they have been affected by the pressure over the last few months because they look drained, But things aren't going to get any better until we start winning. And it's as simple as that. Win games of football and we'll be happy. You don't win games of football and we won't be. It's as simple as that. You just got to find a way to win. And the winning has to be the number one priority, not the style of play. That can come, that's secondary, but as long as you're winning, then the Rangers fans will get behind you. And it'll be an amazing place to be, for Danny Röhl and for the new owners, if they can get this working. But if you don't, it'll be one of the worst, because like we've said, the pressure is like no other at this football club.
Yeah. If they thought it was bad now, then how many managers do we have to go through? I'm starting to lose count. When I was young, one thing my dad said to me when I was a bit younger, it was that the great thing about being Rangers manager is you're there for life almost. I think when I first started going to Ibrox, I could be wrong by a couple of years, but there was only 9 of in our entire history. There were only 9 other managers.
Yeah, and it would have been over 100-year history by that point. So it's like, and now it's
9. Then in the last, since 2018, it was 2017, we've had 10.
Yeah, well, we're on manager 21 now, so yeah, we've had a lot over the last decade.
No, I understand.
It's an annual thing at the minute, though. Every October, it's like there's a new manager. we're on the search for a new manager. It's just ridiculous.
How much? But again, it's the finances as well. It's this revolution of and I do understand why clubs might want to go to a system where there's stability with the scouts and the coaches, etc. I get that, but football is not like that. It's not like a normal job where you go into a manager's job and you meet the team and you go, well, good to meet you, and it's the same team at your company and anything like that, because the company doesn't sack 10 employees for a new manager. No. But in a football club, it's different, and it's and Thirlwell and Stewart, if they didn't realise that before, by God, they've realised it now. And their body, Patrick Stewart's body language again, he was just gone.
Yeah, I honestly can't listen to the man. I'm sorry, and it sounds harsh, but I really, 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 really struggle listening to Patrick Stewart. I don't have any confidence in his leadership ability. Same with Kevin Thirlwell. I just think they're no good for us. But But on the plus side, I mean, Stephen Armstrong says here, I do believe there is more to come from some of the team, and under the right person, we could see more. But we have only had one match without Russell, and we did see it in glimpses, and that's sort of the hope that I'm really hanging on at the minute, because in that first half against Dundee United, we had 24 shots, right? We had chances to score, and if we scored the second goal, I think the second half is a completely different game. But we didn't, right? So you know, we need to be more clinical, but at least we showed signs that this team can perform at a level required to create chances against his opposition. We just need to do it more consistently, and that's going to be Danny Röhl's biggest task. Get them performing like we did in the first half against Dundee United. Become more clinical, but do that every week. And in his press conference today, he was very much focused on the next game, winning the next game, because they asked him questions like, you know, do you think you're in a title race? You know, do you think you can claw back the gap? And he was very wise in what he said in terms of, you know, there's absolutely no point in football looking so far ahead because things change all the time. All you can do is focus on the next game and start to build a run of wins together, because we are yet to do that this season. I mean, it's nearly November and we haven't won back-to-back games, you know, which is just abysmal. So
well, I can't even remember the last time we won back-to-back games. Like,
I don't know. Someone in the comments might be able to tell us, but I have absolutely no idea when we last won back-to-back games.
It was quite telling actually, because I watched Liverpool Man United on Sunday, and you know, apparently that's the first time that Almiron's won 2 games in a row for Manchester United in 2 years. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's incredible how closely these clubs are sort of performing, you know, and the things that are happening, you know, they seem to be linked. It's quite incredible, really. That we're sort of going through the same two massive clubs that are just nowhere near the standards that they've once set for themselves. But yeah, so hopefully on Thursday we can start to see what this Danny Röhl era is going to be all about. I'm really excited for the game. And I wish I was over in Norway, to be honest, to see it. But apparently Bergen is the rainiest capital in Europe. So there you go. Are you looking forward to the game on Thursday?
Yes, I was just reading an interesting fact here about Shamiti. Apparently, he came on as a sub in a League Cup game away at Doncaster Rovers and was so bad he was actually subbed himself.
Oh, God. Don't tell me that. My goodness.
So, there you go. So there you go. Interesting. Yeah, we'll try and do a show on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, depending on the
Yes, an early kickoff as well. It's 6:15 UK time, so it's so I'll be rushing home from work to watch it. That's for sure. But we'll try to do a show Thursday morning. Thursday before the game. I think.
Good luck with that, Jay.
I know. I wish, and post match as well. But I think it's important that we do get something from Thursday. You know, I think if it's another loss, we've got 3 losses in Europe, having played probably 3 of the teams that we'd be expecting to beat. You know, I feel like, you know, it's going to be quite a depressing place. I feel like if we can get something, get a bit of positivity, get a good performance, just even a point, I'll take a point right now just to get some points on the board and go from there. But it's a massive few games, massive period this, which will completely define our season. You know, you've got the European games against Brann and against Roma as well before the international break. You've got the League Cup semi-final against the other half of Glasgow on the 2nd of November. And then you've also got, obviously, important league games if you want to claw back some of those points that were behind Hearts in the table. It's such a massive period. But like Danny Röhl says, you know, his focus is on the next game and it's all about winning. So I think we should wrap it up there. We've been going for nearly 50 minutes now. But thank you all in the comments for taking part in the show. We much appreciate it. If you can like the videos, share them, subscribe to the channel, that would be much appreciated as well. And we'll be back before the game on Thursday to do a bit of a pre-match show on it and what we can expect to see and what we hope to see, and give our score predictions. So thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure. Cheers, buddy.
Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye, everyone. We are the people.
The people.